Right now, I have to stop saying.
Yes.
And we miss Luds. But guess what? He'll be back on the show on Monday after his little vacation paid time off, which he was forced to have, by the way. But that's okay. Sam is eating and left some on his beard for later. Sean is back after not being on the show yesterday. We only get Sean a couple days a week. And we get to talk about a playoff series involving the Dallas Stars. Yesterday with the Kings, great conversation because we have that shared pain of losing to the Oilers in the playoffs. Today, it is going to be the Winnipeg Jets. Andrew Hustler, Paterson, last name, Hustler's going to be on, and Mike McIntyre from Manitoba. I got to send him the link again because he can't seem to find it in the emails I sent him earlier. We'll do all that on DLS in the morning right now.
Get it ready, boys.
It is Friday, and it's the morning, which is weird for us, but boy, it will be perfect later when we get out of our studio, go home, and sit on the couch for the first game of the EPL season, Liverpool-Bournemouth. I couldn't have timed it any better.
Muted.
I didn't even realize I did it because we just needed to sign up with our guest. We have two guests today. Welcome to the DLS Stars podcast, Friday, the 15th of August. Sean Shapiro, Sam Nessler, depending on which way you're looking, Owen Newkirk, and Katya. Katya is here producing today, and she'll also be producing Monday. So we're going to get a wraparound of fun.
Y'all are going to get sick of me.
No, bring it on. So
Never.
we're going to talk Winnipeg Jets today. Andrew Hustler, Paterson will be on in just mere moments. He's connecting, I believe, as we speak. And then Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press will be here on the second half of the show. And Sean, you weren't on yesterday. We had a great talk with Eric Stevens and Zach Dooley about the LA Kings. I didn't quite process it because it was frustrating as an outsider to watch, maybe because we were cheering against the Oilers, but watching the Kings sort of fall apart when it looked like they had that series in the first round last year completely under control. And then you realize they've lost to the Oilers 4 years in a row in the first round. This time they finally had home ice advantage, and this was the biggest gut punch for the Kings of this 4-year run. Like, it sounded miserable. And then, of course, we go, well, the Stars have lost in the conference final to the Oilers twice.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember which player it is, but there's like some absolutely bonkers stat of somebody who is from the Kings. I think it might be Adrian Kempe. I'm going to attempt to look this up. Like, I think his career playoff point totals are ridiculous. They're all against the exact same opponent.
Because they've only played the Oilers.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm going to look this up right now while we're like Adrian Kempe has, so he's in 28 career playoff games. He's got 29 points in 28 career playoff games, right? Incredibly point per game playoff performer Adrian Kempe. All against Edmonton.
That's wild. And in a losing fashion every single year.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Let's welcome on Hustler. Sam is remote today. As you can see, he at least has a little bit of sunlight, so it doesn't look like he's been kidnapped, which is a good thing. And let's bring on our first guest. There he is, Andrew Hustler Paterson from Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hustler, you have been gracious enough to have both Sean and myself on your show, and we've been trying for months. But you do go live around the same time we go live, and so it just doesn't work. And it's great that we could finally figure it out and make it work today. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Guys, thanks a lot for having me. It's great. I hope you've all had a great summer, and now we're just counting down the days to getting back on the ice and dropping the puck.
It seems like it's still forever, but we're actually only a month away from training camp reporting and starting. And players like Matt Duchene, just his kids just started school like mine did, although different schools and different ages. So he's back in town, saw him on the ice skating tweet the Stars put it out yesterday with Captain Jamie Benn, who lives here year round. But boy, we have a lot to get to. We were talking Kings yesterday with a couple of our friends from LA and that series in the first round with the Oilers. And I went, wow, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Jets Stars round 2. So tell me we'll get back into beating the Blues, the Stars series, and overall. What was the fallout, the reaction in Winnipeg after Dallas beat Winnipeg in the second round in the spring?
It was, listen, obviously there was disappointment. The way the team went down, though, Remus and I on our show, after, 3-4 days and it had passed, we were talking about, listen, there's only one team that wins the cup. So 15 are going to get bounced at some point. And if you will, the misery index of those 15 teams, I'd say it was almost near the lowest in Winnipeg. And first off, the getting over the hump, winning that series in the first round and doing it in the fashion that they did in Game 7 and the double OT, the Cole Perfetti goal with the second left, it created it essentially got them past a lot of skeletons in the closet, if you will, just for the last few seasons. Since they went to the conference finals in 2018. And listen, the series against Dallas was tight. It was disappointing that they weren't able to do anything on the road, really, for the entire playoffs. But guys, if you remember what happened around going into Game 6 with the passing of Mark Scheifele's father and the way the team stepped up and played, as disappointing as it was to lose, I think that there was a real sense of pride, I think, around here, around what this team was able to accomplish last year throughout the regular season, and in the playoffs, despite losing to a really good Dallas Stars team. So I think once the initial pain of just being bounced, which happens to every team, it was gone, I think people look back and really appreciated what was a pretty magical season for the Jets, outside of not being able to get to the conference finals and maybe challenge for the cup.
Hustler, it's one, this one was going to come early because you and I have talked about it on your show before with the two American goalies these two franchises have, and obviously we can all agree Connor Hellebuyck, from a regular season perspective, there's hard to find many resumes outside of Dominik Hasek with a better resume career-wise, regular season-wise, than what Hellebuck's done. Reigning MVP, everything like that. There's the Luds singing. What's kind of the feeling for you in Winnipeg right now, coming out of a postseason where he goes toe-to-toe with Jake Oettinger in this playoff round, and he's got the Hart Trophy again and everything like that, but there's been that question of the playoff performance. What's kind of the feeling with Hellebuyck from your perspective right now?
Listen, he's putting together a Hall of Fame resume right now with the Winnipeg Jets, but at the end of the day, you really are measured by how you are in the biggest moments, and in the against the best teams in the most high leverage minutes. And he would be the first one to tell you, I think he wasn't quite at max Hellebuyck, if you will. I think it's just going to drive him more, to be perfectly honest with you. He is a guy that is so, listen, we all know the goalies are weird. He is sort of in his own, he's the most fun guy to listen to. He doesn't really have a filter. But afterwards, I think he and the team took a step back and realized that they'd accomplished a lot. But I think he's at the front of the line of knowing that, had he had a bigger performance in a game or two, maybe that series goes in a different way. And listen, Oettinger and Hellebuyck will always be talked about not only as rivals in the division, but we've got Olympic Games coming up. I think that was that is going to be something that's really going to motivate him going into this season. Now, in the regular season, he's as good as any. I will say this. I think not only will the Olympics be a big carrot and he'll look to try to earn that job and represent the United States, but come playoff time next year, I think there'll be maybe a little bit more of a chip on Connor Hellebuck's shoulders, as opposed to just going there feeling like not only is he the best goalie, but he won the Hart Trophy. Obviously, at that point, they hadn't thrown it out. But it was sort of an incomplete grade on the playoffs overall. He did come up big at times. I mean, obviously he had the 2 shutouts against Dallas. I mean, it wasn't like he was bad in that round, but credit where credit is due. Jake Oettinger was the better goaltender in that series. And obviously, unfortunate for Stars fans, that really wasn't the case in the next round. And more often than not, you look at 2 good teams that are relatively evenly matched up, and you look at what team won in the best of 7 series. More often than not, that's the team with the better goaltender. And I think in the best of 7 series between Winnipeg and Dallas, I'm not sure that we could argue that Jake Oettinger was the guy that got the job done.
Is there any conversation about how many games Connor plays in the regular season? Because we've talked about it here in Dallas. Because what's kind of the prevailing thought there when it comes to? I just looked up. He played 63 regular season games. I guess it's 65 or 66 with the 4 Nations as well. Before that, we saw Jake Oettinger hit a bit of a wall. Glenn Gulletson was very open with me saying that he's going to have to look at Jake Ottinger's workload because he's worried about what happens for goalies who play past 50 games in the regular season. What's kind of the conversation about Connor Hellebuyck's workload and how you – and are you creating a wall by overly playing him in the regular season?
I mean, there's a ton of conversation about that. I mean, it is, when you have a player of that importance to a team like the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, everyone's going to hit every single angle of it. And listen, the guy's a workhorse. He wants to play every game, guys. Listen, if you could throw him out, if they gave him the green light to play 82, he would do that. And sometimes when you've got a guy that's putting together a season like he had, it is very hard to keep him out of the net.
But isn't that, Hustler, isn't that the coach's job? Because Jake's the same way. I think Oettinger would start every game if you let him. And isn't it Scott Arniel, his coaching staff's job to kind of pull the reins back and say, look, you were the Vezina Trophy winner. Nobody argues that. But for us to have long-term playoff success, we think we need you to dial back 5 to 10 games.
I mean, absolutely. That is their job. And if they feel that way, that's on them to do it.
Yeah.
See, I'm not sure. I mean, listen, it's a very interesting conversation. I can't really tell you whether he wasn't as good in that series against Dallas or at times against St. Louis because he's played so much. I think there's a bunch of other things that could be, hey, the lights are brighter in the playoffs. Did he just react to it well? It's really hard to attribute what happened in the playoffs, maybe coming off a little bit from that Hart Trophy level in the regular season to playing too much or some other things. So, I mean, it's easy for us, and I mean, the hot takes fly in the chat on our show every day, when we kind of talk about this sort of thing, and there's some people who say he's playing too much, he doesn't have at the end. I just don't know how you quantify it or say that really is the case. The one thing that I'll tell you is this team's got a hell of a lot better chance of winning hockey games when 37 is in the net, and more often than not, coaches want to win that game. They want to go 1-0 that night, and they're going to play the guys that give them the best chance. However, I think there will be, over the course of this offseason into training camp, some more conversations between Arnie, Wade Flaherty, the Jets' longtime goaltending coach, and Connor about putting together a plan that maybe instead of throwing him out 63, 64 times, he gets to the high 50s. I think that's probably the middle on that. And listen, I think Eric Comrie played well enough last year that, if you can find those good spots, obviously you're probably not doing it in big divisional games against a Dallas or a Colorado. But if you can find that extra 5 or 6 starts, I certainly don't think it would be a bad thing. I have a feeling they will try to sort of work together to get him on the same page to do that as well. But at the same time, as much as some people have that opinion, I really don't know how we can pinpoint and say, yeah, that is why the case. But, if they do give him 6 less starts and he goes on a big run in the playoffs, we'll say, what the hell were we waiting so long to do this for?
Well, we have to go to a quick ad break. Don't go anywhere because we have a lot more to get to with Hustler. We're not going to have enough time, I can tell already, because we have a lot of topics. It's great stuff. More with DLS in just a moment.
All right, let's talk about Empire today. Just just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today is flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores. You wander endless aisles, then somehow you're hauling all the materials home, looking for an installer, and coordinating everything yourself. The big box stores might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. As we've said before, you don't want water and electricity to mix. So Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. Their flooring experts will bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture, your walls, all of that fun stuff. Just like the wonderful, not the room Owen's in right now, but the other room, the floors and the furniture go great together because of what Empire Today has done. So to schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home, DLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard right. A $350 discount code with DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DLLS for full details.
Thanks, Sean. You didn't think that you could do a full bite of a breakfast sandwich while Sean's doing an ad read, but what if I told you that you could? And also, finances
Or
can be
should
messy
you?
and confusing. Yeah, well, I'll tell you why in a second. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop just earning and start growing your money. It's more than just your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center, giving you everything right there in front of your face: accounts, investments, goals, your grocery list. No, I'm just kidding. No grocery list, but everything else is there financially for you to have your goals right in front of you and make it super simple. The finance tool that people actually love. You can join over 1 million households by joining Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, 30,000 five-star reviews. Just go out and get it. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DLS at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year. monarchmoney.com with code DLS.
All right, let's bring Hustler back on. And Sam, if you've finished a bite of the breakfast sandwich, please take the next question for our esteemed guest from Manitoba.
Yes. Hi, Andrew. I'm also here. I'm part of this podcast sometimes. So I'm going to stick with exactly what we were
Questioning it
just
every
talking
moment
about.
he eats on air.
Since we were just talking about it, let's stick with Connor Hellebuyck, Buck. And I'm just curious. It's a question that I thought was pretty obvious maybe earlier, but now
Hellebuyck,
There you go. But now comparing kind of the playoff success versus the short-term success, the on the road versus home, who do you think starts in Italy for Team USA if you were to make a guess right now, and why?
I mean, it's a great question. And to be honest, I think the real answer is we're going to find out in the first 3 months of the season. I think that what happened in the playoffs and Jake Oettinger beating Hellebuyck certainly gave him a leg up, or if he was behind him, which I guess he was based on the Four Nations, maybe sort of caught up. Unfortunately for Jake, he didn't really follow it up with a series of that same caliber against Winnipeg. So the U.S. is in a great spot. I mean, they've got some really, really good goaltending. I can tell you that we here north of the border would kill to have that sort of depth at the goaltending position. I mean, Binnington was on one and made a couple crazy saves, but if you look back at that tournament overall, I mean, I think we looked at that Canadian team and thought that was, if there was an Achilles heel of Team Canada on a best-on-best tournament, it was the fact that we maybe didn't have the elite goaltending that some of the other did. I think both of these guys, and this is a great thing for Dallas Stars fans and Winnipeg Jet fans, I think both of them are going to be incredibly motivated to be at the top of their game right out of the gate, because the first few months of the season, guys, I think is really going to be what determines it. I mean, very difficult. I'm sure, I don't know what Team USA is doing. I know Team Canada is getting together and doing some things towards the end of the month. I mean, nothing in August is really going to determine who's playing and who isn't. They're both going to be on the team. And I really do think we're going to have about a 3.5 month competition between two of the best in the league for the confidence of Team USA's management for who gets that first start. I will say, though, that, in a short tournament like that, whoever does get that first start, I mean, it's going to be step up and show that, you deserve game two, because they're going to have a heck of an option right behind whoever does get that starting job to throw in if it doesn't go their way in the first game.
I want to back up a little bit to the beginning of last season when you had to but acclimate to a new head coach. Although he had sort of a on-the-job training from the year before when Rickbowness had to step aside for some health reasons and his wife Judy. And we've known Bones in Dallas for a long time, and there isn't a better person in hockey than Rickbowness. Absolutely love the guy, both on and off the ice. He's an infectious personality, and of course he knows the game so well. Were you at all surprised how well the transition from Rick to Scott Arniel went, even though Arniel had run things during Bowness's absence and obviously knew the team? But this was sort of a redemption opportunity for Arniel as an NHL head coach as well. Was the President's Trophy even remotely on the horizon when the season started last year?
You guys, I mean, I'd be lying if I said, oh, we rolled into game number 1 going, you know what? At the end of this 82 game grind, there's a pretty good chance the Jets will be standing looking down at every other team in the National Hockey League. I mean, no, that wasn't the case. And Scott Arniel deserves a ton of credit. He came in, you make a great point. I mean, he had that, his first shot in Columbus, which didn't go particularly well, although there's a pretty long list of guys that you could say that about in Columbus, Ohio with the Blue Jackets. But, guys, he pressed all the right buttons. I mean, the team started off 15-1. So, I mean, all of a sudden the team's sitting there at 8-1 and 9-1 and 10-1. I mean, they're rattling off all these wins. And once you start off, I mean, 15-1, that's 20% of the season. So, I mean, once they got to that, I think it totally recalibrated what might be possible for this team. I mean, at the beginning of the year, you're hoping this team can make the playoffs. Maybe you can get into the top 3. I mean, it wasn't running away with the division in the Western Conference, albeit not really running away. The division's so good. I mean, it still took right down to the final week of the season to sort of ice that. But, the personal redemption for Arniel wasn't something that he would ever talk about or really that we were getting at. But I do think that there was a number of people that, maybe some skeptics, that needed to be shown that he was the right guy for the job. True North, I mean, the organization that owns the Jets, sometimes is criticized fairly or unfairly for being unwaveringly loyal to people that have been with them beforehand. And certainly Arnie, a former coach of the Moose, a former player for the Jets. I mean, he ticked off all those boxes. But because of that, I think he had to prove even more that he wasn't a hire because he was close with the people and they knew what sort of a guy he was. He was a guy that could come out and get the best out of this team. And, you mentioned that he worked with Bones. I mean, he was a real key part of that coaching staff for the 2 years when the whole culture change happened with the Winnipeg Jets, moving on from Blake Wheeler and all that. And hard to imagine it going much better last year when he took it over. And listen, guys, he passed pretty much every test with flying colors, especially in that real tough first-round series against the St. Louis Blues, keeping his team in it and obviously advancing to the series that ended up ending their series against your Stars.
And Hustler, I was in the AAC when we were expecting Scott Arniel during the playoffs to come out and talk to the press, and it turned out to be Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM, to announce that Scheifele's father had passed away. And I just thought, I'm not saying I didn't have a good impression of Arniel, but the way that Cheveldayoff handled things, the fact that Arniel didn't go to morning skate, was back with Scheifele, I just added a layer of respect for how Arniel handled things than the way he handled the press when he got to the arena later that day. I know that playoffs are important. There's a lot of money on the line, but it's just a hockey game in life. I just thought Arniel and Cheveldayoff handled that really awful situation as well as you could ever expect to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, that was just, it's still crazy to think back of that day, waking up, it's the biggest game of the year. Can the Jets force a game 7? And you find out that your number one center, a guy that's synonymous with the franchise, has lost his dad. And that, added a whole nother wrinkle to the way that they went out, going out on their sword, playing the way that they did, having Mark in the lineup. And Scott deserves a ton of credit for that. Guys, there's a lot of teams in professional sports will, talk a good game when it comes to we're a tight-knit group and, we are a family and all that. And the Jets were one of those teams previously. I mean, 3-4 years ago, you heard a lot of those things, but it didn't really come across in a lot of other ways. I think it was sort of lip service. That was far from the case with the Winnipeg Jets, certainly last year under Scott Arniel. And there was no better example, to your point, guys, than Game 6 in Dallas. They've put together an incredibly close, tight-knit group. I think the success they had kind of built that up even more throughout the year. And then, a tragedy like that brings people together even more in the most difficult times. And Scott was the leader of that. But, they'll be the first one to tell you. They're professionals. They're incredibly driven. But at a certain point, and unfortunately we saw that in the series, there are things that are bigger than the 60 minutes ahead of you and trying to get the series back. I mean, it was something that touched everyone. You saw the way that, they all reacted pretty viscerally afterwards when it was over with the emotion on it. So they set that up. A lot of people talk about being that family group. I'll give the Winnipeg Jets credit. They absolutely delivered in that. And we saw it in spades in that series against the Stars.
It's hard to follow up the topic of that one because that's obviously such a powerful, emotional one. So I'm going to try here. This team, this forward group is fascinating to me because Nikolaj Ehlers leaves, right? And now all of a sudden you have Nemestikov, who's playing more of a second line center role last year, is now going to be in a third line role center because of a guy who hasn't played in 2 years in Jonathan Toews. And I'm really curious from your perspective when Toews comes into this group. Where is the fair, in your mind, what is fair expectation and where should we actually apply all of this? Because it's such a mystery box for me looking at this roster of what he's going to be, especially after missing the last 2 seasons.
You know what, Sean? I mean, you could go across all 32 teams in the league. And I think Jonathan Toews and his performance this year and his return to the National Hockey League might be the most intriguing topic in the entire National Hockey League. I mean, there's a pretty wide range of possibilities, I think, for it. I mean, listen, the guy is, 37 years old. He's been out of the league for over 2 years. So at that point, you're like, well, how much can you really expect from him? And on the other side, this is a guy that's walking straight into the Hall of Fame the second that he is eligible, has, this incredible career, does not need to come back to prove anything to anyone. Which is why I think it's so interesting that he's deciding to do this and doing it here in his hometown of Winnipeg. Listen, the storylines are set for the upcoming season, and he will be. We were just talking yesterday about FanFest and the first day of the year, the season. So much focus is going to be on Jonathan Toews, but if there's a guy built to handle that, I think it's someone that has the experience that he does. As far as on the ice, they're going to give him the opportunity right out of the gate to play in the top 6 on that second line. And especially with Adam Lowry out potentially for a couple months into the season after his hip surgery, it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of excitement. It'll put some asses in seats, but they need him to be a productive player right now, considering the way this top 6 looks. Like, as far as expectations, I'll tell you what, I think reasonable expectations would be 15 to 20 goals and 45 points or so. I think that if he could get on the other side of, say, 55, that would be a huge, huge success. But I'll tell you what, I mean, this has been kind of the most interesting topic that we've had all off season as far as what you expect Jonathan Toews to do. The one thing I'll say is that I'm betting on Toews basically because first of all, I know how much work he's put into this comeback. This is dating back 9-10 months that he's been working, gearing up for this. And I really don't think that he would do it if he didn't think that he could come back and be a big-time contributor to the Jets. Like, this is not a guy that just needs to finish his story by playing 6 minutes on the 4th line somewhere. So he's going to have the opportunity, maybe more so than he would anywhere else. The people are going to be behind him. And frankly, the Winnipeg Jets need him. So hopefully in the best case scenario, as opposed to what you have to acknowledge are some big ifs for a player that's been off the ice for as long as he has.
All right, Andrew, unfortunately, last one for you here as we're running out of time, but something we've been asking all of our guests from the outside perspective, in your case, Winnipeg, what do you see in the Dallas Stars going into 2025-26, and what are the expectations?
Well, listen, we know this team very well. We've seen them a lot in the regular season. Just had 6 pretty fun games in the playoffs. listen, I think the Dallas Stars are going to be right there at the top of the division, battling for first place as they've been before. Like, it's so funny, guys, because this season is so long. And the minute you get to the playoffs, it's like, oh, whatever, that's done. And, we focus in on 2 weeks that can go back and can pivot on, one play, a lucky break, those sort of things. Like, the body of work for the regular season over season for the Dallas Stars is elite and one of the top teams in the league. Now, could there be a team that takes a jump up the way the Jets did last year and sort of surprise everyone? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talent in this division, but I would be very surprised if the Dallas Stars, if they don't win the division, weren't the number 2 team or at minimum taking a playoff spot in that top 3. And I mean, that's basically what you need. I mean, it's a chip in a chair, right? I mean, you got to be in that party at the end of the season once you eliminate half the league. I don't think there's any doubt that the Dallas Stars will do that. But just personally I'm interested to see some of the younger players, if they'll get in and start contributing a little bit more. That's, some of a changing of the guard. I know Jamie Benn is back, but like, what is his role? And obviously you've got the big boys up front and now a full training camp and full season of Mikko Rantanen. And so for the rest of the teams in the Central Division, the Dallas Stars will still be a problem, and really looking forward to dropping the puck on the entire season, the home opener and the return to the National Hockey League of Jonathan Toews against the Dallas Stars here in the PEG on the 9th of October.
Well, Andrew, a.k.a. Hustler, it's such a great thing to have you on. One of the benefits of having guests that we've known so far in the summer series is it's never feels like 30 minutes. It feels like 10. I hope it's the same for you because it flew by. We didn't get to half of our topics, but I'm so glad we were able to finagle out some time with our 2 show schedules. I'd like to say let's do it again soon, but with us being on concurrently, it may not be that easy. But I really sincerely want to thank you for coming on because it's wonderful. We got to get to Mike next, but great to have you on the show today.
Guys, the pleasure was mine. I always love chatting with you and appreciate you guys making time for us in Winnipeg on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So whenever we can make it work, I am down. And hey, just on the way out, I heard you guys doing a couple sponsor reads earlier. When I was coming into Dallas for games 3 and 4, I was listening to the show and we heard an ad for the Happiest Hour, one of your sponsors.
Ah, yes.
And we looked it up. It wasn't too far from our hotel and put in a couple big time shifts at the Happiest Hour. When
nice.
So, just trying to, you know what's us in this digital space. You got to support the sponsors. So showed it to them. We had a great time.
And send it to the sponsor right there.
Yes,
perfect. Hustler, you're the best.
Yes. Take care, fellas. You guys have a good one.
There he goes, Andrew
Andrew,
Hustler Paterson, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Check him out. His YouTube show is on daily, and it's wonderful. And now we got to get to Mike next. Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press joins us next here on DLLS.
I, Sam Nestler, cannot wait until November 18th because that will be the day after this trip is over, and I no longer have to tell you about this trip that we are not invited on. But that is not the time yet. So instead, I'm going to tell you about how we, DLS
You've been hanging around with Luds too long, Sam.
With True Fan Travel for the ultimate fan experience. I do not have a timer, so somebody please tell me where I am. DLS is taking over this trip for an unforgettable experience and weekend in Vegas, and you, right here, need to be there. Join us as the Cowboys take on the Raiders on November 17th, Monday Night Football. It's going to be a great game. Ardell, I believe, is predicting the Raiders to win by 7, an early prediction out of Ardell there. So this all-inclusive trip includes a 3-night stay at a luxury Vegas resort, game tickets, VIP parties, exclusive events with the DLS Cowboys crew, which includes RIP John Anderson and fellow diehard fans.
He's not dead.
Much more. This is how Dallas does Vegas. So book now at truefantravel.com. It's going to be a good time. I know that Brian Schottenheimer, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, is excited for that one. We also have plenty of fun gear. Look at that. Katya has already got it up there for us. The Dallas collection. Some amazing shirts there. The barbecue one that I have, which I love. The really long word that Owen uses for the mascot one that I don't know off the top of my head. The horror show that is. The Big
Are you
Tex,
talking about Big Tex?
No, I was talking about the mascot.
Oh, the middle one, the scary one.
Yeah, what's the word you use for it?
Amalgamation.
Amalgamation.
Amalgamation. Exactly. That's what I said. The algorithm. Dallas versus all y'all. Nolan Ryan. They got the DLS Mavs with the hat on it. Plenty of cool stuff. We also have all of our star shirts from last year, including our playoff shirts. Owen's wearing one right now. Finish Mafia. I have 4 seconds to continue talking about that shirt.
Time's
or
up.
You can go to Bowling Green's website and get Sean's shirt. Check it out. alldls.com.
Man, Sam, there's so much there that I have to say, but we got to move on because let's welcome on our second guest today, and by no means second fiddle. Here is Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, thrilled that you could join us today. Thank you very much. I did want to look, if you want to talk about the playoff series, Stars and Jets, feel free because we got lots of hot takes on it, but we did a bunch of that with Hustler, so I wanted to give you a chance to pivot a bit more to the offseason. Because Nikolaj Ehlers was the belle of the ball in free agency, and I'm curious how much that hurt for Jets fans and for the team to lose him versus at least knowing he went to the other conference and you got the Jonathan Toews signing in. How did that all play out after the playoff run was over?
Hey guys, first of all, thanks for having me on. Love what you guys do, and Winnipeg and Dallas. My goodness, that was a great playoff series. Obviously, ended with a lot of emotion. Certainly on the Winnipeg side with what Mark Scheifele was going through, and kudos to the Stars for the way they played in that series. And kind of looking forward again to seeing Connor Hellebuyck and Jake Oettinger going head to head, side by side actually on the U.S. Olympic team. I'm actually heading to Milan to cover the Winter Olympics.
Sorry, that's the Luds drop about Hellebuyck.
Oh, it's Winnipeg's fault. They came out with that song.
Walked into a trap. Yes. I'll be covering the Olympics actually for the Winnipeg Free Press in Milan. So
very
I'm looking
cool.
forward to seeing what Hellebuyck and Oettinger can do side by side on Team USA. Nikolaj Ehlers. I mean, there was obviously a lot of folks hoping that he would resign in Winnipeg. I think the writing was on the wall when they didn't get the extension done prior to the season or during the season. That's kind of the way they've traditionally done their business. You look at I'm going to say it again, Connor Hellebuyck and Mark Scheifele. When those guys were entering the final year of their deal, they got the extensions done prior to the start of the what would have been their final season. So the fact that Ehlers didn't want to talk about it during the year, and he really went out of his way to kind of not want to discuss his future, that was a pretty good sign, I think, that he was going to move on. Now, what do the Jets lose in Nikolaj Ehlers? Obviously, he's a dynamic player, brings a ton of speed, but he's also a guy that gets injured a lot. And, we saw that in the playoffs again. Sometimes the freakiest of injuries, like running into a linesman, just the weirdest things. And he seems to always be in the middle of different things. But, he's a guy that when he's healthy, he is an elite winger, does some things that, quite frankly, the Jets don't have another player quite like him, nor do they have anyone kind of in the system ready to just take his spot that's now been left. So it's a big loss. How big? Well, we'll see, I guess. Again, this is a guy whose career high is just 64 points, which kind of speaks to the fact that he just can't stay healthy. Like, you watch Nikolaj Ehlers, and you're like, well, that's a 80 to 90 point guy right there. Well, why has he never done that? Best of luck to him in Carolina. I'm really interested to see what that looks like under Rod Brindamore's system. Nikolaj Ehlers is a guy who there's a little bit of freelance in his game, shall we say. You hear coaches talk north-south, right? He's an east-west, north-south. He's all over the map. And I'm curious how much Rod Brindamore will try to rein that in, or if he's just going to let him, because quite frankly, he's the kind of player I think that Carolina has needed, a potential game breaker, but he may go off script. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, for the Jets, like, I'm not so worried about what they lose offensively. This is a team, they scored enough goals last year. And their bread and butter is defensive structure, certainly special teams. And I think the Jets may miss Nikolaj Ehlers. This is a guy who could do zone entries like really nobody else on the power play. But, their defensive structure is, I think, still very sound. They have all the same defensemen coming back. really the same core aside from Ehlers, same coaches, and the same, goaltender in net who's just been a force certainly during the regular season. And it would appear the plan by the Jets, at least for now, is to try to replace Ehlers' offense by committee.
Yeah.
And, you touched upon Jonathan Toews. The Jets also signed Gustav Nyquist, and, that's an interesting player. We're not sure exactly what version we're going to get of him. Is it the one that just 2 years ago, had 74 points with the Predators? Or is it the guy that had just 29 last year and really seemed to take a step back? So, if the Jets could get something in the middle between those two very extremes, then I think that, they'll be very happy offensively. And, there are some young players in the system. Brad Lambert would be the closest, I guess, NHL ready player, and he has Ehlers-like speed. Didn't have a great year in the AHL last year, but he's a first rounder that many feel is ready to kind of take that next step. So I think that, certainly you'd lose a guy like Ehlers, a homegrown star, drafted and developed, a success story. Fans are feeling the sting. It's a tough loss, but I think the Jets have the depth and, the players in place to probably overcome what they're going to lose, at least statistically, from Nikolaj Ehlers.
So we're not going to trap you with Connor Hellebuyck drops all day, but we do have another one. Aside from Luds doing that drop, we have the one from the team. Go ahead, Kat. So we're always prepared, but we're not going to play it every time you say his name. So feel free to speak
right.
freely there. Okay, Sean, it's up to you.
Yeah. It's first off, it's really interesting when you bring up Ehlers going to Carolina, because we've spoken to Mikko Rantanen, and one of the reasons that Mikko Rantanen kind of didn't want to stay in Carolina was there's only north-south. It's not the Mikko Rantanen wanted to freelance a bit more, so it's a fascinating thing to think about Ehlers going there because. But we talked about Toews before. One of the fascinating stories that you're going to you probably get 5 Twitter mentions a day from this already, is Kyle Connor, right? Because it happens every time with a prime Winnipeg Jets player who's going in, and Ehlers leaving is not going to help that. But it's so when you look at the Kyle Connor situation in the Jets, is that something that, like Ehlers, where if everything's pushed off to the end of the year, is it something that gets done during the year? Where do you kind of look at that? Because I'm sure I'm one of 70,000 people that have bothered you with that question, and you'll get the question on a random Tuesday morning next week from a fan on Twitter as well about it.
Yeah, and Frank Saravelli threw a little gasoline on the situation the other day when he mentioned the Detroit Red Wings as a potential landing place should Kyle Connor get to free agency. To be clear, he wasn't reporting that that's where Kyle Connor wants to go play or anything like that. He was just speculating, and I would have speculated the same thing. I mean, of course, his hometown team would be a natural landing spot should he get there. I'm on record, and I'll repeat it with you guys. I don't believe Kyle Connor is in the same situation as Nikolaj Ehlers. I also don't think he gets to unrestricted free agency. And in fact, I'll be surprised if there isn't an extension in place for Kyle Connor by the time the Dallas Stars are at Canada Life Center for opening night. Like, I think it gets done. I really do. And not just Kyle Connor, Adam Lowry, obviously a very different player, but the captain of the team, Adam Lowry, is also going to be entering the final year of his contract. And guys, I could see, not unlike what we saw with Hellebuyck and Scheifele a few years ago, with their extensions being signed on the same day at the same time, I could see a situation where Lowry and Connor are both re-upped with extensions. Now, to be clear, Scheifele and Hellebuyck got the exact same term and salary. Kyle Connor and Adam Lowry will not be making the same amount of money. I can assure you of that. Adam Lowry is probably going to be in the $4 to $5 million range, and Kyle Connor, I suspect his number is double digits. It's starting with a 10, maybe an 11. But I do think there's a willingness on both sides, Kyle Connor's and the Jets, to keep him long term. And so, yeah, I mean, if we get to opening night and he has not extended, there's going to be collective PTSD in this market because of what just happened with Ehlers. like there will be a large segment of fans going, "Oh my God, here we go again." And one of the things last year with Ehlers that there was probably at least a segment of fans that thought, well, if the Jets aren't signing him, they got to move him. They got to get something for him. They can't lose him for nothing. Well, how do you do that when you're leading the NHL, when you're the number one team in the regular season? You're not selling. So, you're essentially treating him as your own rental. I don't think the Jets can afford to do that a second time. Like, they can't. They're just not in the position. It's well documented, guys. The Jets are not a prime landing spot for free agents. There is difficulty at times getting players, to waive no trades, that sort of thing. When you have drafted and developed stars like Nikolaj Ehlers, like Kyle Connor, you can't afford to just let those guys leave and get nothing to kind of fill the cupboards in return. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's something the Jets are really entertaining at this point, because I think they don't believe it's going to get to that stage. But if we do get to October 9th, the whole conversation could potentially change if Kyle Connor and his camp decide, you know what, I want to take a wait and see approach. I want to see what the market looks like. If that's the case, the Jets are going to be in quite the bind. And the thing is, they don't have a whole lot of power in that situation. Right? You're kind of at the mercy of the players. So I know the hope is to get this resolved over the next, 2 months, 7 weeks or so. And, but the clock is starting to tick a little bit on that. There was a lot of business this summer that Kevin Cheveldaev had to attend to, specifically his own restricted free agents. That's all done now. I got to think now the focus is on Kyle Connor and to a lesser degree, Adam Lowry, and getting those guys re-upped.
All right, a lot more with Mike McIntyre. We talk Jets and Stars here on DLS next. Thought for a second we had the quick wipe. It went a little double one. So, well, Sam sings because he is obsessed with that song. And when that song plays, he's like a parrot. He has to repeat it. He can't leave it alone. Let's talk about what's going on right now. Even though the Cowboys are breaking training camp in Oxnard, it's not training camp overtime. They've got 2 more preseason games. They've got work at the Star before the season begins. And we still have our annual Die Hard sale up right now. As you can see, more than 70 or more than 50% off the regular annual rate, $36, as Sam tries to hork down his food and probably gets choked. Or just be safe, Sam. We know your hospital history. If you scan that QR code and go to alldls.com/intro, you will get a huge discount off the regular rate. And in addition to that, you will get coverage for the top level of all the writing that Sam and Sean do for the entire hockey season, and for Clarence for the entire Cowboys season, and for Tim Cato for the entire Mavs season, and Jeff Wilson for, I don't know if the Rangers are going to make the playoffs now. They've stumbled a little bit. It's not out of the question, but but they still have a chance. So, and you get all of almost, playoffs and next year for the MLB season. So when you sign up to be a diehard, you get a free t-shirt of your choice. The one that I think is one of the best is this one right here. Finnish Mafia. Fantastic. How about that one? Then you don't have to see me try to wiggle around the microphone. Unbelievable shirt. But we have so many to choose from. The Dallas collection came out a couple of weeks ago. There's the Otter shirt right there. You've got the Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn. I like this one. The Cooper flag captured. Very creative shirt. There's the Dallas collection. Of course, Kat and I have the Nolan Ryan, giving it the business to Robin Ventura because Avi, they're great. Although I saw Kavanaugh wearing the Dallas versus all y'all out in Oxnard talking to Shoddy. All right, I'm not going to go to DLS.com, sign up to be a diehard today. I'm not going to make fun of Sam again for not knowing who the new Cowboys head coach was in Dallas 2 days ago. Like, how do you avoid that? But, okay. But yeah, Mike, he's never watched Seinfeld and he grew up in New Jersey. Anyway, besides that, all right, Sam, the floor is now yours after all of that carving.
For anything, I can do whatever I want with it.
Well, I mean, our guest is here, so you might take advantage of him.
Yes, I will. What's going on, Mike? I'm curious. We talked to Andrew a little bit about, he kind of just mentioned the Rickbowness, the Blake Wheeler captaincy and all that whole situation. So kind of a 2-parter here for you. Can you just take people that aren't aware of that situation? Can you just kind of take us through how that went down? And then on the other side of it, how are Rickbowness's fingerprints still on this franchise?
Oh, that's a great question, and one that I'm sure fans in your market are eager to hear about, because Rick, of course, made an impression, I imagine, in Dallas as well. He makes an impression wherever he goes. He's just that kind of person. And, guys, his fingerprints are absolutely all over this Jets team. He completely changed the culture. He fixed a lot of things that were broken, specifically in that dressing room. And, it's interesting. A lot of the damage that had been done can actually be traced back to a guy that's now a pretty successful coach in the NHL. Oh, that'd be 2-time Stanley Cup champion Paul Maurice. But guys, like you've heard it said before, right? Every coach has a shelf life. Eventually, you get to a point where even the best coaches have to move on, and that was Paul Maurice. That was he's the one that actually decided to step down because he saw what was happening around him. Like, the players weren't listening. There was divide within the room. And a lot of bad things were happening that he did not feel this team was going in the right direction. So he steps aside, kind of leaves a big mess. And the mess didn't get cleaned up right away when they made Adam Lowry's dad the interim head coach, which only made things even more awkward. Like, there is no situation, guys, where the father of a player should be a head coach in a professional sporting environment. It's just a recipe for dysfunction. It really is. And I've actually had great chats with Dave Lowry and Adam Lowry kind of after the fact, and they admitted this was a bad decision. There was a divide within the Lowry family. There was a divide in the room. So Rickbowness walks in, thinks he's going to cruise into retirement after leaving the Stars. And he's got a big mess on his hands, and credit to him. Like, this is a guy who he's obviously a lifer in the NHL. He's pretty much seen and done everything. He comes in with the fire extinguisher, and there's a lot of fires to put out. And, the big one was right off the hop. And you've heard the expression, you go to prison, you walk up to the biggest guy in the yard and like punch him right between the eyes. In a slightly more subtle way, less violent way, that's what Rickbowness did with Blake Wheeler. He realized that this team, with Wheeler at the helm and where Wheeler was at in his career, this was not the direction they had to go. So he ripped the Band-Aid off. And that first year with Wheeler no longer being part of the leadership group, I think that led to what happened after Rick's first year, which was they bought Blake Wheeler out. They realized just his presence alone was still an issue. And, we heard it in exit meetings, like where players were still talking about Wheeler as the captain, even though he wasn't. It just was not a great situation. And so this was all Rickbowness is doing. Like, he went to ownership, he went to management with his ideas. And when they brought him in, the idea was Rickbowness had the floor. Like, they wanted his opinion. They didn't want him to be a yes man and just go along with the status quo. So, he changes the leadership group. It opens up all kinds of additional channels of communication with this team. And you start to see this bond form that, quite frankly, just was not there. And the Jets became a very tight-knit group over the course of a few years, starting with what Rickbowness did. And then, of course, he's got his health issues. His wife has health issues. Ultimately, he makes the decision to step away. But he's brought in Scott Arniel almost as sort of succession planning. And now you can make the transition to Arniel, who can carry on a lot of the things Rickbowness had already started. And a big one was the defensive structure. The Jets were a team that played reckless in their own end. And quite frankly, they were selfish at times. You had offensive stars who did not want to play defense. They wanted to cheat for their offense. Rickbowness taught them that you can have it both ways. You can still get your points, get your cookies, but you can also be a responsible defensive player. And he instilled that in this group. And, they've now won 2 straight William Jennings trophies as the best defensive group in the league. Obviously, the first one was under Bowness in his last year under Scott Arniel, but that's Rickbowness's impact on this team. He brought this group together. He taught this group some valuable lessons about playing defense. And I'll go on to say that, if the Jets can win a Stanley Cup in the next few years, I know they probably couldn't do this, but there would be a case to be made to have Rickbowness's name etched on that trophy as well. That's how big of an impact he had.
Mike, I wanted to go back to the Lowry thing real quick, and not necessarily, but one of the things about Stars history, and Luds isn't on the show today to verify this, but I can tell. In Dallas Stars history, when they won the Cup in '99, one of the big things was the Sergei Zubov trade. But the trade was Kevin Hatcher for Sergei Zubov. They traded away the captain's brother, and afterwards, Darian became a better captain after his brother was out of the fold. And there's lots of guys in that team have talked about that. I'm curious, you talked about Adam and his dad working with his dad as a head coach, and now Adam's the captain. What has your read kind of been on Adam since then, and now into the full-blown captaincy role since that?
Oh, it's a great point and a great comparison, and I would agree wholeheartedly. It opened Adam Lowry up to be the player that he probably couldn't be in that room, certainly with what was in place. Even just having his dad as an assistant, which he was at the time under Paul Maurice, and then obviously made the interim head coach, like even that felt like an awkward decision. And Dave Lowry, great human, by all accounts, a pretty good coach. But I mean, there's lots of great coaches out there. Like the decision to bring him in the first place just felt like it put Adam Lowry in a tough spot. And especially with the dynamics of that room, where there was clearly some friction, maybe between what guys like Paul Maurice and maybe some players were trying to accomplish and what other guys felt like should be happening. So yeah, it really opened Adam Lowry up. And this is a guy who he oozes leadership, but he wasn't even part of the leadership group with his dad in the room. He wasn't an alternate captain. And so he's able to now step up, essentially find his voice. And that's how Dave Lowry put it to me. Like, me getting out of there allowed Adam to find his voice. And not only did he find his voice, he also found his game. He unlocked parts of his game, which for a guy now, he's now over 30. You usually aren't talking about a player finding, setting career highs, things like that, especially a defensive specialist like Lowry. But he's done that. The last 2 years have been his two best career years offensively. And, he's added, of course, so much more, and he's become the face and the voice of the Winnipeg Jets. For all his stuff he does on the ice and in the room, he does even more in the community. He is the Winnipeg Jets. And I just can't imagine if any of that could have really happened with Dave Lowry still in the room. So yeah, it unlocked the best version of him. And it also made family dinners a little less awkward. Let's put it that way.
All right. We have one more question for Mike because we're running out of time, but I have to do a quick offboarding here. So we want to thank to everyone who joined us today on our television platforms. Make sure to like and subscribe here on the pod and check out alldlls.com. Mike, before we say goodbye, because it's gone by way too fast, a quick follow-up on the Lowry thing. I was the Texas Stars play-by-play announcer when we beat the St. John's Ice Caps in St. John's to win the Calder Cup in 2014 with Adam Lowry on that team and others. It was a great series, two good teams. There's been a lot of connection between the Stars and Lowry as opponents going back to the AHL days and then to the NHL. But speaking of the Stars, we've asked every guest on this summer series, and you will be no exception. We're not just looking for fluff, but if you want to say nice things about the Stars, you're certainly welcome to. What's your take, your unvarnished take of what this Dallas Stars team is going into this coming season?
Oh, they're my Central Division favorite. They're my Western Conference favorite, guys. I mean, we do previews and predictions in the Free Press, and I'll have them number one in the Central. I think the Jets aren't winning the President's Trophy again next year. I don't think the Jets are even winning their division next year. I think the Jets are still going to be a very good hockey team. But the Jets don't need to do all that. We just saw what the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers did. Like, it's not about your regular season. The Jets need to learn how to win in the playoffs. And, you know, I'm not saying they can take their foot off the gas and cruise through the regular season. They can't. But they got to pace themselves, and it's more about the playoffs. I think Dallas, up and down, you know, I know it's been a quiet offseason for Dallas, but it didn't have to be noisy. Like, the pieces are in place. I love what Jim Nill has been doing with that organization. I mean, just some great trades. And I think another, you know, a full camp with Rantanen, and, you know, we started to really see in the playoffs, like what he can do and the impact he can make. Obviously, Miro Heiskanen healthy. You know, I just think Dallas is the team. Like, they are the pace setter in the Central. And, you know, I see maybe a couple teams like the Jets taking a bit of a step back. So, yeah, I think Dallas is going to be the team to beat in the Central. In the West, they'll absolutely be in the mix, of course, come playoff time. And it would not surprise me if we get Stars Jets round 2, perhaps next spring sometime. And that'd be a lot of fun.
We always get excited at my house when the character in the movie says the name of the movie. And Mike just said the title of the show today. So we have to go, hey. But before we let you go, if you could pluck one player off this Dallas Stars roster and drop him into the Jets lineup, no salary cap issues here, who would you take and why?
That's a great question. I love Jason Robertson. I really do. Like, he's a guy that Rickbowness used to, and I remember having a bunch of talks with Rick about him, and Rick talked about some of the tough love. Like, you talk about his fingerprints. I'd say his fingerprints are also on Jason Robertson and other Stars players too. But I remember Rick talking about some of the tough love he had to employ with Jason Robertson early in his career to kind of get him to play the way he wanted to. And, you know, I think we talk about Nikolaj Ehlers and his absence, like Jason Robertson would be a heck of a fit in the Jets room. But yeah, I mean, Dallas, they got a bevy of great young talent for sure. And I mean, you're probably surprised I didn't say Rantanen. And in fact, there was a time when Rantanen was on the market. Like, there was some people in Winnipeg wondering, like, man, at least saying he would be a great fit, which he would be, wondering if there could be a fit there. And I don't think that would have worked out in the end. We don't have the same luxuries necessarily as Dallas to offer Mr. Rantanen. So I think he's found a nice home there. And but yeah, Jason Robertson, he'd be the answer to your question.
Wow, Mike, you've been fantastic. I expected no less, but we'll have to do this again soon because it was really a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for carving out some time on a Friday in the morning to do it. And can't wait. First game of the year, Stars and Jets up in Winnipeg. Should be a lot of fun.
It'll be here in no time, guys. Enjoy the rest of summer, and yeah, we'll touch base down the road.
There he goes.
Thanks,
Mike
Mike.
McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Boys, any final thoughts here in overtime before we say goodbye today?
I think Sam should sing us out. Sam should sing us out.
Okay, Sam, before you sing, let me then say, hold on. Before he does it, a quick reminder on the show. Monday, we're at 2:15. Oh, boy, he showed the laundry. 2:15 Central Time, Monday show. Kat is producing a double show, Rangers and then Stars. So she needs a little buffer so she doesn't. We gotta do one show to the next. Matt DeFranks, our good friend, former Dallas Morning News Stars beat writer, now, of course, for multiple years as the St. Louis Blues beat writer for the St. Louis Dispatch, will be our guest. He'll be on for the full hour, so we won't have to wedge him into just 2 segments. So Matt DeFranks will be here on Monday. Then we're going to do, I think, the Ottawa Senators Tuesday and onward and onward. We've got lots to go. We haven't even reached the halfway point of the other 31, but it has been great so far. Sean, we don't know your schedule yet for next week, but appreciate you joining us on a Friday.
Yep.
And happy start to the EPL season, sir.
Yes, I wish the best of luck to you in 36 of the 38 games. So.
All right, Sam, if you haven't left,
Play
other
us
than
out,
showing, here we go.
That's Connor Hellebuyck.
We all silly like the mayor.